Hello, my name is James. We're the Abeo Quartet. This is Ludvig, Njioma, and Drew. And we'll be playing the first movement of Haydn's Opus 76, number 1 for you guys. Hope you enjoy.
Do you guys have a score?
Oh, I have one, Ron.
You have one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Bravo, beautiful. What makes this piece fun?
I think all the different dialogue that's going on, and the passing of, and the switching of the voices also, and crossing of voices.
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a very jovial
It's
movement.
a lot of fun, isn't it? It really is. What I think you might add to that is a little bit, what I hear in the way that you're tossing this back and forth is I hear something in which the roundness of your sound is kind of sometimes obscures what that dialogue might be. And so I hear a little bit of a cautious quality to it that you're probably not intending. So it has a very cultured quality to it. Tell me about Haydn.
I mean, he's the father. Oh.
Father of the string quartet. That, yes. What else? I mean, what distinguishes Haydn's music from Mozart's?
I think Haydn played a lot more tricks on you.
Okay.
Subverts your expectations a lot more.
Yeah.
And I believe he wrote a lot of his music based off of the Sturm und Drang, like literary movements. So
Right.
he tries to bring out the extremes of emotion.
Right.
Like that.
When was this piece written?
1796.
17, right. So it was in the late 1790s. Mozart had died, 7 years before that. It's fascinating sometimes to sort of look at Haydn's development from the quartets that he wrote, the Sun quartets that he wrote 20 years before, 25 years before, all the way to quartets. And in the middle of those, Mozart actually wrote several string quartets that he dedicated to Haydn. And at that point, you can actually see, in a way, Haydn's, what he was focusing on shift a little bit. But I don't think he ever loses that quality of wit. He rounds things more. He puts more even phrases and so forth. He's not quite as tricky in a way as he is in his earlier quartets. He's not keeping us off balance as much. But he's still very, very witty. And I lost a little bit of that quality. And I think there's a little bit more in your articulation that you can get. Yeah. And even in your first chords, they were really, really beautiful. Maybe Mozartian? You know what I mean? Instead of somehow feeling that the liveliness of them really sets the mood for this a bit more.
I couldn't agree more. I was thinking that you played so beautifully, but there was a sheen on everything, and not quite enough edge sometimes to really give us a sense of that jovial quality you mentioned. Maybe you're lyricists in a way. You have the lyricism, which is just beautiful. Not writing words to music, but you have a great lyric sense. So having a bit more of the rhythmic impulse, and in those first 3 chords, I'm fascinated in this movement with the way things rise. So, dum, bum, bum. You're very equitable, Ludvig, in the way you play with your colleagues. It's very democratic. And it's nice that the first violin is not necessarily beaming up above, but there are times when we do need that line to emerge. That's one of them. And there are other little places where you have dum, bum, 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 be-da-da-da-dum. Let's see, I think I can tell you exactly where this is. This is in bar 26. Bum, 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 bi-da-dee-da-dum, bum, ba-dee-da-dee-dum. I heard chord, da-da-da-da-da. I didn't really know that it's sort of a 3-in-1 proposition there. Okay, so see if you can take these comments and still make the piece feel like it's yours. Yeah?
Beautiful, beautiful. You knew you were going to go on, didn't you? 1, 2, wah! Bum, ba, da, dee. And what I heard, dim, bum, beam, bum, ba. You see what I mean? But we don't know that you're going to go on. And so somehow figuring out how to make something that's a little bit more spoken, a little bit more irrational, and it's keeping us a little bit more. We haven't established a regular period yet, have we? It starts with you.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And those first three chords, what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And they're a little bit the ending chords, right?
Yeah.
And so feeling like something, yes. Bum, ba, dum, pi. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously that's an exaggeration, but that you've got a little bit more of a room. Make your colleagues wonder. You know what I mean? Make them wonder this much. Okay. Obviously, you don't want us to stumble.
Yeah.
But at the same time, own the stage. Figure out when do you have to play that. Dum pi om ba dum bum ba dum ba dum bum 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 ba. Really? What I'm feeling is, again, it's predictable. You've got this wonderful rhythm, and we've got four kind of equal statements, and they're all balanced. What's the difference between, say, the two of you?
I think that mine is kind of a question when his kind of answers it.
Okay, that's pretty, yeah, that's a very good thing. I'm not quite hearing that.
Okay.
How do you make us hear that?
Just playing with the intervals and the chromaticism and the harmony to tell a story.
And the harmony. What makes it a question?
Ends on the 5.
Right, right. And what I'm not really quite hearing is that you're playing those two harmonies. And what makes yours an answer?
Well, actually, I pick up, he ends on the 5.
The 5,
and
right.
I pick up with the next scale degree.
Right, right. In other words, so you make it even a little bit more complex at the beginning, right? I'm not quite hearing that. Same thing from the two of you. So that we really get a harmonic story between the four of you. You know what I mean? So we really follow that. And I think that sense of question and answer will be clearer. And keep hitting it. Will be clearer. You know what I mean? Can we try it once again from the beginning? Good, good, excellent, excellent, beautiful. You took time,
What's that?
all right? Yeah, yeah. You understand what I mean by that, right?
Yeah.
It sounded like you sort of took time and you sort of built it in. Why would you take time?
I don't know, it just happened in the moment, I guess.
Well, that's what we would prefer.
Right.
We would really like to feel like there's something about it that just kind of joyously closes this, right? And how can you do that so that it sounds that way? How can you do what it is that you're thinking about so it doesn't sound like something that's a little bit glued in? You're going to round this off and take time at the end of it. It's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah.
But some way you want to convince us that it's something you're discovering like that. Maybe it's a little much, a little bit too obvious. And it may be that if you think that what inspires it is the breath that you would naturally take before singing it in that way, you know what I mean? Something about the way that you get to that may inspire a different pacing getting into it.
I was thinking how we often in our quartet, we play the same repertoire a couple dozen times in the season, you know, which is a real privilege. At first, if you're not used to that kind of thing, you think, oh my goodness, how are we going to do this? But it's a constant state of reinvention and becoming fascinated over and over with all the little, you know, what's the word, nooks and crannies of the piece. So, you know, what Ron is talking about, I think, is really apropos. Also, the way you treat the pickups. Yumpa, I think this is a pickup kind of piece. And you can tell so much about the character of each of those entrances by the way you enter. So, that sounds obvious, but the way you envision the energy of the pickup. And maybe that also stems from the chords in the beginning. Because I hear 1, 2, and 3, you know, there's something very nice. Maybe it's a gallant gesture like that, or maybe it's the end of a piece. Yum, bum, ya. And that might give you some kind of idea about your timing. if it's not just so straight.
Once again. Nice, nice. Beautiful, beautiful. One thing else that you can incorporate, I hear a very stylistically appropriate, but somewhat narrow idea about how long those quarter notes are. But sometimes, what? So you can play a little bit more with just how you sustain them. You may want to release them the first phrase, but maybe the second phrase, it tells a little bit of a different story. You see what I mean? So that the idea of how long your notes are, in a way, how much you sustain, how much you release, and so forth, really convinces us you're telling us a story, and that's what the word is. That's what the harmony is. That requires you to say it in such a way. You see what I mean? Instead of feeling like I'm saying many different words, but they all sound pretty much the same, very beautifully spoken. That's not me. But you know what I mean, in other words, and pronounced in the same way, that is stylistically appropriate. Tell us the story. And when you're rehearsing, don't be afraid. In fact, even in here, don't be afraid to kind of do it differently from your colleagues. And then you're all paying attention. And you can watch when it's different, when it's not quite together, when something is different that way. You can actually watch, if you're all paying attention, you can watch it coalesce. And it coalesces often around something that none of you had thought of. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that it's not a question of one person's idea or a directed compromise between the four of you, as much as watching something evolve and watching it come out. You do have to be paying fierce attention. But at the same time, to me, it's the main reason I do this, is to have that experience of watching something emerge like that. Let's do one last time from the beginning. Beautiful,
beautiful.
Nice.
You know that little nuance you take right at the end there at the piano? I noticed you did it later as well. And I was thinking maybe that's one of those things that you could have a spontaneous, in-the-moment kind of approach to. Maybe you have a repertoire of 6 different ways you do that. But you know, just try to... I was looking and saying, what are they going to do this time? Yeah. And there it was. But I love the balance. What you provided this time, you were just a little bit more out of the texture. When things become chromatic, I think maybe our modern ears are just a little bit too comfortable. You know, it's like, okay, now it does this, and oh, here's a C sharp or whatever. But I think at this particular time when this music was written, that was a little bit more potent. And I'd love to hear how the chromaticisms kind of bring things into a greater state of tension. And that finally results in da 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 da. You know, there's a reason that you all come together at that point. So it's like compositionally, things are getting more and more taught.
I'd love to hear slowly you to play, say, from 51. Body, dee da, body, dee da da. And tell us the harmonic story. Where's the tension? Where's the release? It shifts around, doesn't it?
How slow?
Ba yada ba ba body dee da bum bum. Good. How does that work? How are those two measures, 51 and
52.
what's it, 51, 2, 3, 4? How are they different? I mean, they're different chords, but fundamentally, they're quite different, aren't they?
Well, contrapuntally, the textures are going in different directions in the lower
Right,
voices.
right. What about harmonically?
Yeah, right.
Oh, the first one starts on the chord and then goes to the
Right,
diminished chord.
right.
The second one
So you
starts on the
have
diminished
resolution,
and goes-
tension, resolution, tension, and then tension, resolution, tension. I'm not hearing that. You see what I mean? And in a way, it's the kind of the funniest thing about it, isn't it? That he seems to be setting up something that's regular, and he's just reversed it. We do it once again. Let's still a little bit slowly, right from 51. Good. Now, do you want to crescendo into this? Into the unison?
Not always,
Not
but maybe
always.
sometimes.
Okay, all right, you did the first time, and it would certainly convince me. You could do this with a crescendo, but also the subito forte, I think, can work beautifully. But you understand what I mean by that? That if you feel in a way that you're always kind of listening to the harmonic rhythm, you're listening to how does the tension work in it, and it can often give you a kind of an insight like this. What did you do? It was pretty straightforward, right? You played the tension chord a little more than the resolution. And I think that's the way that chordal tension works in general. That's not to say that you might not find exceptions or places where you want to deny it by doing the opposite. But I think I would certainly be aware of what that shift is in a place like this, for instance.
Ludvig, I think in 51, the first one, I think in your part you can actually do a little bit more da dee da da yum pom pom, that we just feel a little more heft in the middle of the bar. It's easier 2 bars or 3 bars later because you're in a higher octave and it's just comes out much more easily. You want to try that more in tempo?
Should we go for 49? Sorry.
Good. Let me just ask you, beautiful. And
That's great.
What I'm hearing now is you're sort of speaking to us a little bit more directly. That B flat chord that you're outlining, how long does it last?
Five bars.
5 measures, right. And before that, what's happening? Is it a long other chord?
No, goes back and forth.
No, it's going back and forth half measures, right? And suddenly you've got a 5 measure long chord. Can you tell us that story from the beginning of that? In other words, it's something about the way that you enunciate that chord is going to help us understand that it's going to last 5 measures or a long time. Can we do it once again? From, the same place, I think. Good. I think you might want to assert ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, a little bit more. When you played through it, what my feeling was, oh yeah, it's there. Instead of, oh, that there's something magical that your voice brings to this new melody. You see what I mean? Yeah.
That subito piano that I mentioned before, of course now it's like highlighted, right? I wonder, have you tried playing it a few times without any time? So that you understand why taking time might be helpful. You know what I mean? It almost feels like we're going to place this, but I wonder if you actually needed to place it, if it would have a different feel to it. Right now it just feels like it might even be an extra half beat.
Yeah. It feels like you took time. And why would you take time for a subito piano? In general.
Said exactly where we wanted, I guess, but that's just kind of cheating.
That's sort of answering the question. I mean, it's the same as the question, isn't it? But I mean, you know, why would we take time? And I think it's helpful sometimes to think it's difficult to go from playing forte to playing piano. It's difficult for you to play, and it's difficult for us to hear. There's something happens with that. And if you take the difficulty of making that transition, and that's what you do, you help us understand that difficulty, then it's not so much a feeling of taking time as playing. You know what I mean? Going from this energy to that energy. And yes, it will probably be a little bit of time, but it may be a little bit more organic because you're helping us to understand it's difficult to go from this to that.
Let's try it.
Nice.
Gorgeous.
And beautiful, beautiful going on. Yeah, and it was absolutely together, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And did it feel like it was a little bit more convincing? Yeah.
Much more. Yeah.
And I mean, yes, there was time in that, but it didn't feel like there was something a little bit artificial that you introduced in order to take time. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Little fragmented idea here at 80. Sometimes I feel I'm singing Ludvig's part because it's the melodically significant one, but I feel that everybody could capitalize more on repeated rhythmic motives and find ways to energize what comes next. Again, looking for organic ways to link between things. Instead of seems a little disembodied to me. And again, imagining what it was like to listen from out there, it's amazing what distance does to ideas here. You know, you have to really think constantly. Your imagination has to be endless. Yeah? Could we try that and just see if you can find motivic fun in that? How about ba-da-dum, ba-da-dim, ba-da-da, 72, last beat?
Why don't you start the whole measure?
Yeah, that might be easier.
Where you guys
Sure.
start the ba-da-dee-da-dee. So 72.
Nice.
Good.
Beautiful.
You know, one more thing that you can think about in a place like that is something that I would generalize, that you've got more ability to sort of share with us this dialogue between something that's quite vertical and something that's quite horizontal. And so in the sound, you incorporate something that communicates to us, ooh, there's this kind of tension. And you know what I mean? It can be more. I think you're thinking that a little bit. You guys have something a little bit different. You've got Are you thinking that? Because are you thinking of two-note groupings?
The duplets.
You're slurring them, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But you may want to feel like, hey, there's a little bit different, that what you're doing are these sort of and you've got this dee da 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 dee. You see what I mean? So it's not absolutely the same shape exactly. Would you mind trying that once again?
And when you get to 73, sorry, when Ludvig has a long A, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dee, it would be neat to get a little bit of that reflected in your approach. Even Drew with the D's, yum, yeah, you know what I mean? You can just kind of spirit your way. That spirituoso has an ESP-like quality. Without telegraphing it, yes? Yeah.
Good, nice.
You know, you're very civilized at the end. Ducka, 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 ducka. You can really trace the voices. What if you're just a little bit less polite and things tumbled? I would just be curious to hear, because it's just so fine. Can we go from 80?
You could also experiment with the idea that you actually allow the excitement of those, the cascading excitement of those two measures, cascade you into something that's a little more precipitous. Good. And then you notice how much more you can close it, in a way. In other words, just a section, but nevertheless that there's something that you've allowed to be that way balances with this.
And the energy that you just exhibited there kind of matched the chords in the beginning now a little bit more. So there's a kind of a, resonance about the whole thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Is that
Thank
it?
you very much.
You sound
Thank
awesome.
you.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.